The sound of shattering porcelain echoed through the modest farmhouse as Eliza Rose clutched her burning cheek, tears welling in her eyes. Her father, Theodore Rose, towered above her, his weathered face contorted with rage, knuckles white around the leather belt dangling from his fist. The year was 1874, and in the small town of Willow Creek, Wyoming Territory, a woman's duty was clear: marry well, marry appropriately, and above all, marry whom her father deemed suitable. "I won't have my daughter consorting with that no-good drifter," Theodore bellowed, his voice thundering through the small kitchen. "William Taylor is the son of the bank owner. He can provide for you. What can that worthless Dixon boy offer except empty pockets and broken promises?" Eliza struggled to her feet, wiping blood from her split lip. At 20 years old, she had grown weary of her father's iron-fisted control, but never had his disapproval manifested in such violence. "I don't love William, father. I never will." "Love." Theodore spat the word like it was poison. "Love doesn't put food on the table. Love doesn't build a future. The Dixons have been nothing but trouble since they arrived. That boy will ruin you." "Adam never meant any harm," Eliza protested, her voice quavering but determined. "He works hard at the livery." The belt whistled through the air, striking the table beside her. "Not another word. You'll marry William Taylor by the end of the month, or so help me, you'll have no place in this house." As her father stormed out, slamming the door behind him, Eliza collapsed into a kitchen chair, her body racked with sobs. Her mother had passed 3 winters ago, and without her gentle influence, Theodore had grown increasingly bitter and controlling. The modest ranch they owned was profitable enough, but Theodore's ambitions for social standing in Willow Creek had become an obsession. Eliza touched her bruised cheek gently, wincing at the tenderness. Her heart ached for Adam Dixon, the kind-hearted livery worker whose only crime was being born to the wrong family. They had been meeting in secret for months, sharing whispered dreams and stolen kisses behind the general store. But someone had seen them, and word had reached her father. Now Adam was gone, run out of town by Theodore's threats and the marshal's not-so-subtle warnings about troublemakers. A soft knock at the back door startled her. Cautiously, Eliza crossed the kitchen, hesitating before pulling open the door. Her younger sister, Mary, stood there, eyes wide with concern. "Lizzie, are you all right? I heard the commotion from the garden." Mary gasped as she took in Eliza's bruised face. "Oh, Lizzie, what has he done?" "It's nothing," Eliza lied, turning away. "Father's just upset about Adam." Mary guided her sister back to the chair. "The whole town knows by now. Father's been at Thornton's saloon telling anyone who'll listen how he caught you with that Dixon boy." She dampened a cloth and gently pressed it to Eliza's swollen lip. "Is it true you're to marry William Taylor now?" The thought made Eliza's stomach churn. William Taylor was 35 years old, a pompous, cold man who looked at her like she was livestock to be appraised. "I'd rather die," she whispered. "Don't say such things," Mary scolded, though her eyes betrayed understanding. At 17, she too lived under their father's strict rule, though she had always been the obedient daughter. "Perhaps William won't be so bad." "You don't understand," Eliza said, grasping her sister's hands. "I love Adam. We were planning to leave together, to start fresh in Colorado." Mary's face paled. "Eliza, you can't mean that. Father would never forgive you." "I don't need his forgiveness. I need my freedom." The sisters fell silent as the sound of approaching hoofbeats reached them. Mary peered through the window. "It's Mr. Taylor and his son," she whispered urgently. "They're with father." Panic surged through Eliza. "I can't see them. Not now." She rushed to the back door, pausing only to grasp her shawl from its hook. "Tell father I'm at the Hendersons, helping with their new baby. I'll be back before dark." "Eliza, wait," Mary called, but her sister was already fleeing across the back garden, slipping through the gate that led to the pasture beyond. Eliza ran until her lungs burned, her mind racing faster than her feet. There was nothing left for her in Willow Creek now. Adam was gone, and she faced a lifetime shackled to a man who saw her as nothing more than a possession. The bruises on her face and arms were proof enough that her father would enforce his will by any means necessary. She slowed as she reached the edge of town, realizing she had no plan, no money, and nowhere to go. The stagecoach to Cheyenne wouldn't depart until tomorrow, and she had no way to purchase passage. The afternoon sun beat down mercilessly as she wandered toward the creek that gave the town its name, seeking solace in the shade of the willow trees that lined its banks. As she approached the water, Eliza noticed a horse drinking from the creek, a magnificent chestnut stallion with a white blaze down its face. Its rider stood nearby, his back to her as he filled a canteen. "Excuse me," she called, then immediately regretted drawing attention to herself as the man turned. What must she look like, face bruised, clothes disheveled from her frantic escape? The stranger straightened to his full height, revealing broad shoulders beneath a dusty duster coat. His face was partially shadowed by a wide-brimmed hat, but Eliza could make out a strong jaw covered with a few days' worth of stubble. He couldn't have been more than 25 or 26 years old. "Madam." His voice was deep, with a slight drawl that marked him as not being from these parts. As he stepped forward, his eyes widened at the sight of her face. "Are you all right? Are you hurt?" Eliza instinctively raised a hand to cover her bruised cheek.
"I've fine."
"I apologize for disturbing you." The man approached slowly, as one might a spooked horse. "You don't look fine, if you don't mind my saying so." He removed his hat, revealing tousled dark hair and piercing blue eyes that regarded her with concern rather than judgment. "Name's Owen Daniels. I'd offer my hand, but it seems you might prefer some distance at the moment." Despite everything, Eliza found herself drawn to the stranger's calm demeanor. "Eliza Rose," she replied, then immediately worried about giving her real name. If her father came looking for her. "Miss Rose," Owen nodded, keeping a respectful distance. "Would you mind telling me who did that to your face? Are they still a threat to you?" The genuine concern in his voice nearly undid her composure. "My father," she admitted, the words barely audible over the gentle burbling of the creek. "He discovered I've been seeing someone he disapproves of. Someone who isn't financially advantageous." Owen's jaw tightened, but his voice remained gentle. "No father has the right to leave marks like that on his daughter, no matter the reason." "It doesn't matter now," Eliza said, fighting back tears. "Adam's gone, they ran him out of town. And I'm to be married to the banker's son by month's end." "Is that what you want?" The simple question caught her off guard. No one had asked what she wanted, not once in this entire ordeal. "No," she said firmly. "I want to leave this place. I want to find Adam. We were going to start a new life together in Colorado." Owen studied her for a long moment. "Colorado's a fair piece from here. You got money for the journey? Friends or family there?" Eliza's silence was answer enough. Owen sighed, replacing his hat. "Miss Rose, I don't make a habit of interfering in family matters, but I also don't abide by men who hit women, kin or otherwise." He gestured to her face. "Your father did that because you loved the wrong man?" "Yes," she whispered. His blue eyes hardened for a moment, then softened as he looked at her. "Then I'll be the right one." Eliza blinked in confusion. "I beg your pardon? I'm heading to Denver myself. Been working cattle drives up from Texas, but I've had my fill of that life. Got a letter from an old friend who started a ranch outside Denver. Says he could use a partner." Owen explained, idly patting his horse's neck. "I can escort you there. You'll be safe with me, and we can look for your Adam once we arrive." Eliza's heart raced at the unexpected offer. "Why would you help me?
You don't even know me."
"True enough," Owen acknowledged with a slight smile. "But my ma raised me to help folks in need, And if that means playing the role of a suitable suitor to get you away from here safely, so be it. He gestured to the town beyond the trees. If your father's set on marrying you off, maybe seeing you with a man who looks more promising than this Adam fellow might buy us time to get you clear of here without raising alarms. The plan was bold, perhaps even foolish, but Eliza was desperate. You do that for a stranger? Sometimes strangers are just friends we haven't properly met yet, Owen replied, the hint of a smile crinkling the corners of his eyes. Besides, I've got business in town before I head out. Might as well make it count for something good. Eliza considered the offer carefully. This man was indeed a stranger, but there was something in his steady gaze that inspired trust. More importantly, he offered a way out, a chance to escape William Taylor and the life her father had planned for her. My father won't be easily convinced, she warned. Men like your father rarely are, Owen agreed. But they understand certain things: property, prospects, pride. If he thinks you've caught the eye of someone better than his current choice, it might give us the opening we need. Eliza's mind raced through the possibilities. If you were a wealthy cattle buyer, perhaps. Someone passing through, but with obvious means. Owen grinned, appreciation in his eyes. You're quick-witted, Miss Rose. I like that. He rummaged in his saddlebag and pulled out a leather pouch. I've been saving my earnings from the last 3 drives. It's not a fortune, but it'll look impressive enough for our purposes. This is madness, Eliza murmured, even as hope began to flutter in her chest. Sometimes madness is just what's needed, Owen replied, extending his hand. What do you say, Miss Rose? Shall we give your father a new suitor to consider? Eliza hesitated only a moment before placing her hand in his. Yes, Mr. Daniels. I believe we shall. As they walked back toward town, Owen leading his horse, Eliza felt both terror and exhilaration. She was placing her trust in a man she'd just met, risking everything on a desperate plan. But something about Owen Daniels' straightforward manner gave her courage. We should have a story prepared, she suggested, keeping her voice low though there was no one around to hear. How we met, your background. Father will ask many questions. Simple stories are best, Owen advised. We met when I passed through 3 months ago on business. We've been corresponding since. I've returned specifically to court you properly. Eliza nodded. And your business? Cattle, primarily. My family runs a successful operation near San Antonio. I'm expanding our interests northward. Owen spoke with such conviction that Eliza almost believed the fabrication herself. You sound quite convincing, Mr. Daniels. A shadow crossed his face. I've played many roles in my life, Miss Rose. Some by choice, others by necessity. They had reached the edge of town now, and Eliza's nerves threatened to overwhelm her. Perhaps I should return home first, explain your arrival. Father will be suspicious if you appear unannounced. And give him time to dismiss the idea before seeing me? No, Miss Rose. Men like your father respond to strength and confidence. Owen's hand gently touched her elbow. Let me escort you home. Your bruises are explanation enough for why I'm at your side. Any gentleman would assist a lady in distress. Eliza swallowed hard, then nodded. Very well. They walked through town together, drawing curious glances. Eliza was acutely aware of how they must look, her face bruised, walking alongside a handsome stranger. Whispers followed in their wake, and she knew word would reach her father before they did. As they approached the Rose property, Eliza spotted her father on the porch, deep in conversation with Clarence Taylor and his son William. All 3 men looked up at their approach, conversation dying instantly. Theodore Rose strode down the steps, his face a thundercloud. Eliza, where have you been? The Taylors have been waiting, he broke off as he registered Owen's presence, eyes narrowing suspiciously. Good afternoon, sir, Owen said before Eliza could speak, his voice projecting a confidence that commanded attention. Owen Daniels, at your service. I found her daughter in some distress by the creek and felt it my duty to escort her home safely. Theodore's gaze darted between them, lingering on Eliza's bruised face before hardening. My daughter tends to exaggerate her circumstances, Mr. Daniels. But I thank you for your assistance. He reached for Eliza's arm. Come along now. We have guests. Owen didn't release Eliza's elbow. Sir, with all due respect, the marks on your daughter's face suggest her distress is far from exaggerated. A dangerous silence fell. The Taylors watched from the porch, William's thin lips curved in distaste. Theodore's face flushed dark with anger. You presume much, stranger, he growled. My daughter's welfare is not your concern. Perhaps not, Owen agreed amiably, though his eyes remained hard. But I've had the pleasure of Miss Rose's acquaintance before, during my previous visit to your fine town. Finding her in such a state today troubles me greatly. Confusion flickered across Theodore's face. Previous visit? Eliza has mentioned no such acquaintance. I wouldn't expect her to. Owen smiled slightly. Our correspondence has been private, though entirely proper. I've returned specifically to further our acquaintance, with honorable intentions. The calculated words had their intended effect. Theodore's anger gave way to calculation as he reassessed the well-dressed stranger before him. You're a business associate of Eliza's? That seems unlikely. Not of Eliza's, sir. I'm in the cattle business. My family's operation in Texas is quite substantial. Owen reached into his vest pocket and withdrew a gold pocket watch, the most valuable possession he owned, though Theodore needn't know that. I had hoped to call on Miss Rose under more conventional circumstances, but finding her as I did, well, it hastened matters somewhat. From the porch, Clarence Taylor cleared his throat loudly. Theodore, perhaps we should continue our discussion another time. Theodore glanced back, clearly torn between his arrangements with the Taylors and the prospect this newcomer represented. Mr. Taylor, please, a moment more. He turned back to Owen. Mr. Daniels, was it? Perhaps you'd care to join us for supper this evening? We can become better acquainted. The invitation was exactly what they'd hoped for, but Owen showed no eagerness. I'm afraid I've already arranged accommodations at the hotel. Another time, perhaps. The casual rejection had its intended effect. Theodore's interest visibly increased. People rarely turned down an invitation to dine at the Rose table. I insist, Mr. Daniels. 7 o'clock. Owen pretended to consider. Well, if you insist. I would be honored. He finally released Eliza's arm with a gentlemanly bow. Miss Rose, I hope you'll be feeling better by then. The silent message in his eyes told Eliza to play along, to say nothing that might contradict their story. She nodded slightly. Thank you for your kindness, Mr. Daniels. Owen tipped his hat to the men on the porch and remounted his horse with practiced ease. As he rode away, Eliza could feel the weight of her father's calculating gaze. An interesting man, Theodore mused, more to himself than to her. Texas cattle money. Eliza remained silent, scarcely daring to breathe lest she somehow reveal their deception. Her father's mood had shifted remarkably, his rage temporarily forgotten in light of this new development. Mr. Taylor, Theodore called, turning back to the porch. I apologize for the interruption. As you can see, my daughter has had a small accident. Perhaps we should indeed continue our discussion another time. Clarence Taylor's face tightened with displeasure, but he nodded stiffly. Very well, Theodore.
Come, William.
As the Taylors departed, Theodore guided Eliza firmly into the house. Once the door closed behind them, his manner changed instantly. What game are you playing, girl? He demanded, his voice low and dangerous. Who is this Daniels really? He's exactly who he says he is, Eliza replied, summoning all her courage to meet her father's gaze steadily. We met when he passed through town 3 months ago. We've been writing to each other since. Letters? Theodore's eyes narrowed. I've seen no letters. Mary collected them for me from the post office. The lie came easily, protecting her sister by implying she had merely been a messenger, not a co-conspirator. Theodore studied her face, searching for deceit. "And this cattle business of his? Is that true?" "His family owns one of the largest spreads near San Antonio," Eliza replied, the details Owen had shared fresh in her mind. "He's looking to expand their interests northward." Her father's expression softened slightly, greed overtaking suspicion. "Why didn't you mention him before? Would you have listened?" Eliza countered, emboldened by the shift in her father's demeanor. "You are so determined that I should marry William Taylor." Theodore waved dismissively. "Taylor is a safe choice. But if this Daniels has the means he appears to..." He paused, thinking. "Clean yourself up. You look a fright, and I won't have you embarrassing us at dinner." He headed toward his study, then paused. "And Eliza? If you're lying about this man, there will be consequences." The threat hung in the air as he disappeared into his study. Eliza released a shaky breath, her heart pounding. The first stage of their plan had worked. Her father's greed had overcome his anger, at least temporarily. But the true test would come at dinner. Mary found her in their shared bedroom, carefully applying cold compresses to her bruised face. "Lizzie, what's happening? Who is that man with you?" Mary whispered, closing the door behind her. Eliza pulled her sister close. "My way out of here, Mary. And perhaps yours too, eventually." As the evening approached, Eliza changed into her best dress, a modest blue cotton with lace trim that brought out the color of her eyes. She arranged her hair carefully to frame her face, partially obscuring the worst of her bruising. Looking in the small mirror, she barely recognized herself, not because of the marks her father had left, but because of the determination that had replaced her usual resigned expression. When Owen arrived precisely at 7, Eliza watched from the parlor window as her father greeted him with a heartiness that would have been comical under different circumstances. Owen had cleaned up impressively, his clothes brushed free of dust, his dark hair neatly combed. He cut a striking figure as he entered the house, hat in hand. "Miss Rose," he greeted her with a formal bow. "I'm pleased to see you looking better this evening." "Thank you, Mr. Daniels," she replied, matching his formality while trying to convey her gratitude with her eyes. Theodore ushered them into the dining room, where Mary had laid out their finest china. Throughout the meal, Owen played his part masterfully, spinning tales of his family's ranch in Texas, their cattle interests, and his own ambitions to establish operations further north. He was vague enough about specifics to avoid being caught in a lie, yet precise enough about the cattle business to convince Theodore of his expertise. "Denver has potential," Owen explained as they enjoyed apple pie for dessert. "The railroads are making it a hub, and where people gather, beef is needed." Theodore nodded eagerly. "Sound thinking, Mr. Daniels. Very sound. Please call me Owen." He smiled, directing his gaze toward Eliza. "After all, I hope we'll be seeing more of each other during my stay." The implication wasn't lost on Theodore, who practically beamed at the prospect. "Indeed, indeed. How long do you anticipate remaining in Willow Creek?" "That depends," Owen replied carefully. "I have business matters to attend to, of course. But I find myself increasingly interested in personal matters as well." He glanced meaningfully at Eliza. Theodore cleared his throat. "Perhaps you'd care to join us for Sunday services? The whole town attends, and it would be a fine opportunity to introduce you properly." "I'd be honored," Owen agreed. "Though I must warn you, such a public appearance with your daughter might generate certain expectations." "Precisely," Theodore said, unable to hide his satisfaction. After dinner, Theodore suggested that Eliza show Owen the garden before he departed. The thinly veiled excuse for them to speak privately was exactly what they needed. As soon as they were alone in the moonlit garden, Eliza turned to Owen. "You were magnificent," she whispered. "He's completely convinced." "For now," Owen cautioned. "Men like your father are suspicious by nature. We need to move quickly." He glanced back at the house. Sunday gives us 3 days. After church, I'll suggest a picnic lunch, just the two of us. Your father will agree, wanting to encourage the match. And then we don't return. My horse can carry us both to the next town over, where we'll catch the eastbound train before anyone realizes we're truly gone. Eliza's heart raced at the boldness of the plan. What about your friend in Denver? Will he really help us find Adam? A shadow crossed Owen's face.
About that.
I may have embellished slightly. I do know someone in Denver, but our arrangement isn't quite as settled as I implied. You lied? Eliza felt a flicker of doubt. Not entirely. There is opportunity in Denver, and I do intend to go there. Owen took her hand gently. Miss Rose, I promise to help you, and I will. But I want to be honest with you now. My circumstances aren't as favorable as I've portrayed to your father. Eliza studied his face in the moonlight, seeing sincerity in his eyes despite his admission. Why are you really helping me, Mr. Daniels? Owen's gaze dropped to her bruised cheek. I had a sister once. Her husband. He was not a kind man. His jaw tightened. By the time I learned of her situation, it was too late. I won't stand by while another woman suffers, whether from a father's hand or a husband's. The raw pain in his voice touched something deep within Eliza. I'm sorry about your sister. It was a long time ago, Owen replied, though his eyes suggested otherwise. The point is, I can get you to Denver. I can help you search for Adam. But I can't guarantee what we'll find there, or what opportunities await either of us. I understand, Eliza said softly. I never expected guarantees. Just a chance at freedom. Owen nodded, his expression serious. Freedom comes with its own challenges, Miss Rose. Are you prepared for that? I am, she answered without hesitation. And please call me Eliza. Eliza, he repeated, the name sounding different in his deep voice. We should head back inside before your father grows suspicious. As they walked back toward the house, Owen kept a proper distance between them, though Eliza found herself wishing otherwise, a realization that startled her. Her heart belonged to Adam, didn't it? Yet there was something about Owen Daniels that drew her to him, his quiet strength, his kindness, the pain he carried behind his confident demeanor. The next 3 days passed in a carefully orchestrated dance. Owen called at the house daily, always the perfect gentleman, always impressing Theodore with hints of his prosperity and prospects. They attended local gatherings together, making sure they were seen by the townspeople, establishing the narrative of their courtship. Eliza played her part well, appearing increasingly enamored with her new suitor while maintaining a proper distance. In private moments, they refined their escape plan, with Owen securing train tickets under false names and Eliza carefully selecting which few possessions she could take with her. Word spread quickly through Willow Creek about Theodore Rose's daughter and her wealthy Texas suitor. The gossip reached William Taylor, who confronted Eliza outside the general store on Saturday afternoon. So you reject me for a drifter, then immediately take up with another man? William sneered, his thin face contorted with wounded pride. Your father promised you to me. My father doesn't own me, Mr. Taylor, Eliza replied, trying to step around him. William blocked her path. He most certainly does, until you're married. And I intend to hold him to our arrangement. Is there a problem here? Owen's voice cut through the tension as he approached from across the street, his hand resting casually near his holstered revolver. William's face flushed with anger. This doesn't concern you, Daniels. Miss Rose concerns me greatly, Owen replied, his tone pleasant but his eyes hard. And it appears you're causing her distress. A small crowd had gathered, watching the confrontation with interest. William glanced around, aware of the public nature of their dispute. This isn't over, he muttered before stalking away. Owen offered Eliza his arm. Are you all right? Yes, she said, though her hands trembled slightly. William won't give up easily. He views me as something he's purchased. Men like that always do, Owen replied grimly. All the more reason to ensure our plan succeeds tomorrow. That night, Eliza could barely sleep. Tomorrow would change everything. She would leave behind the only home she had ever known, fleeing with a man she had known for mere days, all in hopes of finding Adam and building a new life far from her father's control. The enormity of it threatened to overwhelm her. Yet when she thought of returning to her life before the prospect of being William Taylor's wife, living under her father's thumb, her resolve strengthened. Whatever challenges awaited, they were preferable to the prison her father had built for her. Sunday dawned bright and clear. Eliza dressed carefully in a simple yellow dress, packing her traveling clothes in a small bundle that Mary would secretly bring to the church. Her sister was the only one who knew of their true plans, sworn to secrecy until they were well away. "I'll miss you terribly," Mary whispered as she helped Eliza with her hair. "But I understand why you must go." "I'll send for you when I can," Eliza promised. "Once we're settled." Mary smiled sadly. "Perhaps. Or perhaps I'll find my own way. Your Mr. Daniels has shown me that's possible." "He's not my Mr. Daniels," Eliza corrected automatically, though the words felt strange on her lips.
No?
Mary raised an eyebrow. "I've seen how you look at him, Lizzie. It's not the same way you looked at Adam." Eliza's cheeks flushed. "Don't be ridiculous. Owen is helping me find Adam. That's all." "If you say so," Mary replied, unconvinced. "There, you look beautiful. Your bruises have almost faded." The church service passed in a blur. Eliza sat between her father and Owen, acutely aware of the whispers and glances directed their way. William Taylor sat across the aisle, his gaze burning into her whenever she looked his way. The Reverend spoke of honesty and integrity, words that stung Eliza's conscience despite her conviction that her deception was necessary. After the service, Owen approached Theodore with his rehearsed request. "Mr. Rose, I was hoping to take Eliza for a picnic lunch today. The weather is fine, and I've heard the views from Willow Ridge are quite spectacular." Theodore beamed, exactly as they had predicted. "An excellent idea. Mary packed a fine lunch, didn't you, Mary?" He nodded approvingly as Mary produced the basket they had prepared. "Just be sure to have her home before dark, Daniels." "Of course, sir," Owen agreed solemnly, knowing full well they would be halfway to Cheyenne by then. They departed in full view of the congregation, Owen helping Eliza onto his horse before mounting behind her. It was improper, of course, but Theodore had agreed to the arrangement given the lack of a proper carriage. As they rode away, Eliza could feel the weight of the town's eyes upon them, some approving, others suspicious, none aware of their true intentions. Once they were out of sight of the church, Owen urged his horse into a faster pace. "We'll head north initially, to throw off any immediate pursuit," he explained, his voice close to her ear. "Then east to catch the train at Riverdale Junction." The plan worked perfectly until it didn't. They had been riding for nearly an hour when Owen suddenly reined in the horse, his body tensing behind her. "Riders coming," he said quietly. 4 of them moving fast. Eliza twisted to look back, her heart sinking as she recognized the lead rider. "It's William Taylor. And my father." Owen cursed under his breath. They must have grown suspicious. "Hold on tight." He spurred the horse forward, but the animal was already tired from carrying double. The pursuing riders gained ground rapidly. "We can't outrun them," Owen said grimly, scanning the terrain. "They're those rocks. We'll make a stand there." He guided the horse off the trail toward a small outcropping of boulders. Once there, he helped Eliza dismount quickly. "Stay down," he instructed, drawing his revolver. "This may get ugly." Eliza crouched behind the largest boulder, her heart pounding as the riders approached. Owen stood at the edge of their makeshift shelter, his stance wide and confident despite being outnumbered. "That's far enough," he called as the riders came within range. Theodore Rose pulled his horse to a stop, his face contorted with rage. "You lying snake! You think you can steal my daughter and get away with it?" Beside him, William Taylor sat smugly on his horse. "I told you, he was no cattle baron, Rose. Just another drifter with designs on your property." The other two men were the Taylor ranch hands, both armed with rifles, now trained on Owen. "Mr. Rose," Owen replied calmly, his revolver held casually at his side. "I haven't stolen anything. Your daughter is a grown woman making her own choices." "Choices?" Theodore spat. "She's a foolish girl who doesn't know what's good for her. First that Dixon boy, now she needs a firm hand to guide her, not some sweet-talking con man." Eliza stepped out from behind the boulder, ignoring Owen's warning glance. "I know exactly what's good for me, father. And it isn't being traded like cattle to a man I despise, or living under the fist of a father who beats me for having my own mind." William's face darkened. "Mind your tongue, woman. When you're my wife—" "I will never be your wife," Eliza interrupted, her voice steady despite her fear. "I'd rather die first." "That can be arranged," William said coldly, raising his pistol. "Everything happened so quickly after that." Owen shoved Eliza back behind the boulder as the first shot rang out. He returned fire, his movements swift and practiced. There was shouting, more gunfire, and then a terrible silence broken only by the nervous whinnying of horses. Eliza peered around the boulder to see William Taylor slumped in his saddle, blood spreading across his chest. One of the ranch hands lay motionless on the ground. Her father and the remaining hand had taken cover behind their horses, both clearly rattled by Owen's deadly accuracy. "Mr. Rose," Owen called, "I don't want to kill you or your man there, but I will if you force my hand." Theodore's face appeared briefly above his horse's saddle. "You've murdered William Taylor. You'll hang for this." "Self-defense, plain and simple," Owen replied evenly. "Every man here saw him draw first. Now, here's what's going to happen. Eliza and I are leaving. You can either accept that or more men will die today. Your choice." A tense silence followed. Then, unexpectedly, the remaining ranch hand stood, hands raised. "Mr. Rose, he's got U.S. dead to rights. I ain't dying for this." Theodore cursed viciously, but slowly raised his hands as well. "This isn't over, Daniels. I'll hunt you to the ends of the earth." "Fair enough," Owen acknowledged. "But today, we're riding out of here." He backed toward Eliza, keeping his revolver trained on the men. "Mount up," he whispered. "Quickly." With trembling hands, Eliza climbed onto the horse. Owen mounted behind her, his body tense and alert as they rode away, leaving the grim tableau behind them. They rode hard for hours, avoiding main trails and pushing the horse to its limits. By nightfall, they had reached Riverdale Junction, a small settlement with a railroad station. The eastbound train wouldn't arrive until morning. "We need to find somewhere to stay," Owen said as they dismounted in front of the town's only hotel. "And I need to clean up." His coat was spattered with blood, though Eliza realized with relief that none of it appeared to be his own. The hotel proprietor asked no questions when Owen paid for a room, 2 rooms, actually, preserving Eliza's reputation despite their desperate circumstances. Once alone in her small room, Eliza finally allowed herself to process the day's events. A man had died. Her father and his allies had tried to kill them. There was no going back. Now she was truly committed to this path. A soft knock at her door startled her. "Eliza?" "It's Owen." She opened the door to find him freshly washed, wearing a clean shirt he must have purchased in the town's general store. His face was grave. "Are you all right?" he asked quietly. "I should be asking you that," she replied, stepping back to let him enter. It was improper, having him in her room, but propriety seemed meaningless after what they had experienced today. Owen remained standing near the door. "I'm sorry you had to see that. I never intended for things to go that way." "William gave you no choice," Eliza said firmly. "He would have killed us both." "Perhaps." Owen ran a hand through his damp hair. But violence has a way of changing things, of changing people. I wanted to give you a clean escape, not make you a fugitive. We're not fugitives, Eliza insisted. It was self-defense, as you said. Owen's smile didn't reach his eyes. The law might agree, eventually, but your father has influence in these parts. The story he tells will paint us as thieves and murderers. The reality of their situation sank in. So, what do we do now? The plan remains the same, Owen said. We take the train in the morning. Denver is still our best option. It's large enough to disappear in, at least until we sort things out. He hesitated. But I want you to know that you have a choice, Eliza. If you want to go your own way from here, I'll understand. The thought hadn't even occurred to her. No, she said quickly. We stay together. Relief flickered across his face. All right then.
Try to get some sleep.
We'll leave at first light. After he left, Eliza lay on the narrow bed, sleep eluding her despite her exhaustion. Her thoughts drifted to Adam's sweet, gentle Adam who had been run out of town for daring to love her. Was he really waiting for her in Denver? And if he was, why did the thought fill her with such confusion rather than joy? The train journey to Denver took 2 days, during which Eliza and Owen maintained the pretense of being a respectable married couple, Mr. and Mrs. James, to the other passengers. They spoke little of the events at Willow Creek, instead focusing on practical matters, where they would stay in Denver, how they would find work, how they would search for Adam. Owen proved to be a man of unexpected depth. He spoke knowledgeably about books Eliza had read, shared stories of his travels that made her laugh despite their circumstances, and treated her with a respect she had rarely experienced from any man. By the time they arrived in Denver, Eliza found herself torn between her loyalty to Adam and her growing feelings for the man who had risked everything to help her. Denver in 1874 was a bustling frontier city, growing rapidly with the arrival of the railroads. Owen secured them modest accommodations in a boarding house run by a no-nonsense widow named Mrs. Hollister, who accepted their story of being newly arrived from the East without question. I'll need to find work right away, Owen told Eliza as they settled into their separate rooms. Our funds won't last more than a week or 2. I can work too, Eliza insisted. I'm not afraid of hard labor. Owen nodded approvingly. I know you aren't, but we should be careful about appearing in public too much at first. Your father might have telegraphed a description to the authorities here. The search for Adam began simultaneously with their search for work. Owen inquired discreetly at livery stables and ranches, asking after a young man named Adam Dixon who might have arrived from Wyoming territory within the past few months. Eliza, meanwhile, found work as a seamstress in a dressmaker's shop, her skills with a needle proving valuable. Days turned into weeks with no sign of Adam. Eliza tried to hide her disappointment, focusing instead on building their new life in Denver. Owen had found work at a cattle yard, his knowledge of livestock proving genuine even if his tales of Texas ownership had been exaggerated. They fell into a comfortable routine, taking their meals together at the boarding house, sharing the events of their days. One evening, as they walked back from a simple dinner at a nearby cafe, Owen broached the subject they had both been avoiding. Eliza, it's been nearly a month, he said gently. If Adam came to Denver, we should have found some trace of him by now. Eliza nodded, having reached the same conclusion herself. I know. Have you considered that he might have gone elsewhere?
Or.
Owen hesitated. That he might not be looking for you at all? The possibility had occurred to her, of course. Adam had been forced to flee Willow Creek under threat. Perhaps he had decided a clean break was best. Perhaps he had never truly loved her as she had believed. I've considered it, she admitted quietly. But if that's true, then everything we did was for nothing. Owen stopped walking, turning to face her under the glow of a street lamp. Not for nothing, Eliza. You're free. You're building a new life on your own terms. That's worth something, isn't it? The sincerity in his eyes made her heart flutter. "Yes," she whispered. "It's worth everything." They stood there for a long moment, something unspoken passing between them. Then Owen cleared his throat and offered her his arm again. "We should get back. It's getting late." That night, Eliza lay awake thinking not of Adam, but of Owen, the man who had saved her, who had killed for her, who looked at her with such warmth and respect. She had been so certain of her love for Adam, but now she wondered if what she had felt was merely the allure of forbidden affection, the romance of secret meetings and whispered promises. What she felt for Owen was different, deeper, more substantial. He had seen her at her worst and most vulnerable, yet treated her as an equal, never as something fragile or possessed. The realization both thrilled and frightened her. The next morning brought unexpected news. As Eliza worked at the dressmaker's shop, the bell above the door jangled to announce a new customer. She looked up to see a familiar face that made her blood run cold. "Well, well," Clarence Taylor said, his thin lips curved in a cruel smile. "If it isn't the murdering whore herself." Eliza's employer, Mrs. Bennett, gasped at the crude language. "Sir, I must ask you to leave immediately." Taylor ignored her, his gaze fixed on Eliza. "Your father and I have been searching for you, Miss Rose. Or should I say, Mrs. James?" Such a transparent alias. Eliza's hands trembled, but she forced herself to remain calm. "Mr. Taylor, I'm sorry for your loss, but as I'm sure you've been told, your son drew his weapon first." "Lies," Taylor spat. "All lies. William was a good boy. He would never," his voice broke, grief momentarily overtaking his anger. "The marshal in Riverdale Junction recognized your description. It was only a matter of time before we found you." Mrs. Bennett had moved toward the door, clearly intending to summon help. Taylor noticed and drew a pistol from his coat. "Stay where you are, madam. My business is with this murderess and her accomplice." "Where is he?" "I don't know what you're talking about," Eliza said, though terror gripped her heart. If Taylor had found her, Owen was in danger too. The cowboy, Daniels. Taylor's eyes narrowed. "Tell me where he is, or I'll put a bullet in you right here." "Mr. Taylor," Mrs. Bennett said, her voice steady despite the gun pointed in her direction. "There are people just outside. If you fire that weapon, you'll never escape." Taylor hesitated, his hand shaking slightly. Grief and rage warred in his expression. "My boy is dead because of her," he said bitterly. "Someone has to pay. And someone will," came a new voice from the doorway. Owen stood there, his own revolver trained steadily on Taylor. "Put the gun down, Taylor. It's over." Taylor whirled, his pistol swinging toward Owen. You killed my son." "Your son tried to kill me," Owen replied calmly. "And now you're about to make the same mistake." His eyes flicked to Eliza. "Are you all right?" She nodded, unable to speak past the knot of fear in her throat. "Step away from her," Owen instructed Taylor. Slowly. For a tense moment, it seemed Taylor might fire regardless of the consequences. Then, with a cry of anguish, he lowered his weapon. "You've taken everything from me," he said brokenly. "My only son." "I'm sorry for that," Owen said, his voice genuinely regretful. "But it was his choice, not mine." The city police arrived moments later, summoned by a passerby who had seen the confrontation through the shop window. Both Taylor and Owen were taken into custody, their weapons confiscated. Eliza followed to the police station, frantic with worry. The chief of police, a gruff but fair-minded man named Sullivan, listened to all accounts of what had happened both in Denver and the earlier incident near Willow Creek. To Eliza's surprise, several witnesses from the dressmaker's shop corroborated that Taylor had drawn first and threatened both women. "It seems to me," Sullivan said finally, "that we have a pattern here. Mr. Taylor's son draws on you, Mr. Daniels, and you defend yourself. Now Mr. Taylor himself draws on these ladies, and again, you intervene. He studied Owen thoughtfully. You have a habit of being in the right place at the wrong time. Or the right place at the right time, depending on your perspective, Owen replied. Sullivan nodded slowly. Indeed. He turned to Taylor, who sat slumped in a chair, the fight gone out of him. Mr. Taylor, I'm placing you under arrest for threatening these women with a deadly weapon. As for the matter of your son's death, that occurred outside my jurisdiction. But based on what I've heard, I'm inclined to believe it was self-defense. Taylor didn't respond, his gaze fixed on the floor. What about Mr. Daniels? Eliza asked anxiously. He's free to go, Sullivan said. Though I'd advise both of you to stay in Denver for the time being, in case there are further questions. Outside the police station, Eliza threw her arms around Owen in relief. I was so afraid, she confessed, when Taylor appeared at the shop. I followed him, Owen explained, returning her embrace briefly before stepping back. I've been watching for strangers asking about us. When I saw him heading for your shop, I knew something was wrong. He touched her cheek gently. Are you sure you're all right? I am now, she said, meaning it completely. But what happens when they release Taylor? He'll never stop seeking revenge. Owen's expression grew serious. That's why we need to make a decision, Eliza. We can stay in Denver, looking over our shoulders, or we can move on, start fresh somewhere, Taylor, and your father won't think to look. Where would we go? California, perhaps. Or north to Montana Territory. Somewhere far from here. Owen hesitated. But before we decide that, there's something else we need to discuss. Eliza's heart quickened at his tone. Yes, Adam Dixon, Owen said, meeting her gaze directly. I found him. The world seemed to tilt beneath Eliza's feet. What? When? Where is he? He's working at the Silver Dollar Saloon just outside of town. Has been for 2 months. Owen's expression was carefully neutral. I discovered it 3 days ago. 3 days? Eliza stared at him in confusion. Why didn't you tell me? Owen looked away. Because I'm a selfish man, Eliza. Because I wanted. He trailed off, then squared his shoulders. It doesn't matter what I wanted. I made you a promise to help you find him, and I've kept it. The choice of what to do now is yours. Understanding dawned on Eliza as she saw the pain in Owen's eyes. You have feelings for me, she said softly. It wasn't a question. I do, he admitted. God help me, I do. But I won't stand in the way of what you want. If Adam is still the man you love, then you should go to him. I'll ensure you're safely established, then move on. Eliza thought of Adam, his boyish smile, his gentle nature, the way he had made her feel when she was a different person in a different life. Then she looked at Owen, this complicated man who had risked everything for her, who had shown her what true strength and partnership could be. Take me to see him, she said finally. The Silver Dollar Saloon was typical of establishments on the outskirts of Denver, loud, smoky, and populated by a rough crowd of miners and cowboys. Eliza felt Owen's protective presence beside her as they entered, his hand resting lightly on her back. Adam was behind the bar, looking much as she remembered him, though perhaps a bit harder around the edges. When he glanced up and saw her, recognition flashed across his face, followed by something like dismay. Eliza, he said, coming around the bar. What are you doing here? Looking for you, she replied, suddenly unsure of herself. This wasn't the joyful reunion she had imagined. I left Willow Creek to find you, Adam. Adam glanced nervously toward a table in the corner, where a pretty young woman sat watching them curiously. That's something, Eliza. I didn't expect to ever see you again. The coldness in his tone cut deep. You said you loved me, Eliza said quietly. You said we would build a life together. Adam had the grace to look ashamed. I meant it at the time. But things change, Eliza. People change. He nodded toward the woman in the corner. That's my wife, Sally. We were married last month. The revelation should have devastated her, but Eliza felt only a distant sadness, as if mourning something that had already been long dead. "I see. I'm sorry," Adam offered awkwardly. "Your father made it clear what would happen if I ever returned to Willow Creek. I had to make a new start." "Without even trying to contact me?" Eliza asked, more curious than bitter.
Adam şuruk unconfortabil.
It seemed kinder to make a clean break. "You were better off. Without me, your father was right about that much. I had nothing to offer you." Owen, who had remained silent beside her, spoke up. "She deserved to know that, Dixon. She deserved a goodbye." Adam's eyes narrowed as he took in Owen's protective stance. "And who are you?" "Someone who understands her worth better than you did," Owen replied simply. A tense moment passed between the men before Adam nodded, acknowledging the truth of Owen's words. "I wish you well, Eliza. Truly." He glanced again at his wife, who was now approaching. "I should get back to work." As Adam returned to the bar with a hasty introduction of his wife, Eliza felt a strange sense of lightness. The dream she had been chasing, the love she had risked everything for, had been just that, a dream. The reality of Adam Dixon was far less than the ideal she had built in her mind. Outside the saloon, Owen watched her carefully. "Are you all right?" Eliza took a deep breath of the cool evening air. "Yes," she said, surprising herself with how true it was. "I think I am." "I'm sorry it wasn't what you hoped for," Owen said gently. "Don't be." Eliza turned to him, seeing him clearly for perhaps the first time. "Adam was a fantasy, a rebellion against my father's control more than a true love. What I felt for him pales in comparison to—" She hesitated, gathering her courage. "To what I feel for you, Owen." Hope flickered in his eyes. "Eliza, you've shown me what real partnership looks like," she continued. "You've respected my choices, protected me without controlling me, and been honest even when it was difficult." She stepped closer to him. "If you still want me, knowing that I came all this way for another man—" Owen silenced her with a kiss, gentle at first, then deepening as she responded. When they finally parted, both breathless, he rested his forehead against hers. "I've wanted you since that first day by the creek," he admitted. "But I needed you to be sure. To make your own choice without feeling obligated to me." "I'm sure," Eliza whispered. "My heart has been yours for weeks. I just didn't recognize it until now." They were married 2 weeks later in a simple ceremony at Denver's small Methodist church, with Mrs. Hollister and Mrs. Bennett as witnesses. Chief Sullivan himself gave the bride away, having become something of a protector to the couple after the incident with Clarence Taylor. Taylor, they learned, had been released from jail but had returned to Wyoming territory, seemingly accepting that further pursuit of vengeance would only bring him more grief. Theodore Rose had reportedly fallen ill, his obsession with finding his daughter taking a toll on his health. "Do you ever think about reconciling with your father?" Owen asked Eliza one evening as they sat on the porch of the small house they had rented on the outskirts of Denver. Eliza considered the question seriously. "Sometimes," she admitted. "Not for his sake, but for Mary's. I worry about her." "We could write to her," Owen suggested. "Let her know you're safe and happy. Perhaps eventually." "Perhaps," Eliza agreed, leaning her head on his shoulder. "But not yet. For now, I want to focus on our future, not my past." Their future looked bright indeed. Owen's work at the cattle yard had led to a promotion to foreman, while Eliza's skill with a needle had earned her a partnership offer from Mrs. Bennett, who was looking to expand her business. They were saving to buy a small ranch of their own someday, a dream that seemed within reach for the first time. In the spring of 1875, almost a year after their dramatic escape from Willow Creek, Eliza received a letter forwarded through Mrs. Bennett's shop. The handwriting was unmistakably Mary's. "Father is gone," the letter read. "His heart gave out last month. The doctor said it was the strain and bitterness that killed him. I'm sorry to bear such news, but I thought you should know. The ranch is mine now. He had no one else to leave it to." I would welcome you and your husband, should you wish to return. Willow Creek has changed. So have I. Your loving sister, Mary. Eliza read the letter to Owen that evening, her emotions a complex mix of grief, relief, and nostalgia. What do you think? She asked when she had finished. Should we go back? Owen took her hand, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. That's entirely your decision, Eliza. If you want to reconnect with Mary, to see your childhood home again, I'll support that. But we don't need to live there. We've built something good here. Eliza smiled, placing her free hand over her slightly rounded belly, their first child, due in the autumn. We have, haven't we? They decided to visit Willow Creek that summer, a brief journey to reconnect with Mary and close that chapter of Eliza's life properly. The town had indeed changed. The railroad had finally reached it, bringing new businesses and faces. William Taylor's death and Theodore's subsequent decline had diminished the Taylor family's influence considerably. Mary had blossomed in her new role as a property owner, managing the ranch with surprising skill. She had also found a beau of her own, the new schoolteacher, a kind-eyed young man named Joseph, who looked at Mary the way Owen looked at Eliza. Will you stay? Mary asked as their visit drew to a close. The ranch is rightfully half yours, Eliza. Eliza shook her head, glancing at Owen, who stood nearby. My home is with Owen now. But I'm so happy to see you thriving here, Mary. Father never saw your strength, but I always did. The sisters embraced, promises to write and visit exchanged through tears. As Eliza and Owen boarded the train back to Denver, she felt a sense of completion, of circles closing and new ones beginning.
No regrets.
Owen asked as the train pulled away, Willow Creek receding into the distance. Eliza laid her head on his shoulder, her hand entwined with his, their wedding bands glinting in the sunlight. Not one, she replied. Father was right about one thing, though. What's that? She smiled, thinking of how far they had come from that fateful day by the creek. I did end up loving the right man, after all. Owen laughed softly, pressing a kiss to her forehead. And I'll spend the rest of my life making sure I'm worthy of that love. As the train carried them back to their home in Denver, to the future they were building together, Eliza thought about the strange twists of fate that had brought them to this point. Her father's cruelty, Adam's abandonment, Owen's unexpected appearance, all links in a chain that had led her to true happiness. The baby kicked beneath her hand, a reminder of the new life growing within her, a life that would know only love and respect, never fear or control. Do you think it's a boy or a girl? She asked, placing Owen's hand over the spot. I don't mind either way, he replied honestly. As long as they have your spirit and determination. And your kindness, Eliza added. Your courage. Together they watched the landscape roll by, the vast openness of the West a fitting backdrop for the boundless possibilities that lay before them. Eliza had once dreamed of freedom from her father's tyranny, never imagining that true freedom would come in the form of love, the right love, with the right man, at exactly the right time. 5 years later, Eliza and Owen Daniels stood on the porch of their ranch outside Denver, watching their 2 children play in the yard. Thomas, now 4, was showing his little sister Emma how to pet the new foal, his patient instruction a mirror of his father's gentle nature. Letter from Mary, Owen said, handing Eliza the envelope that had arrived with the morning's post. Sounds like she and Joseph are expecting their second child. Eliza smiled as she read her sister's news. Mary and Joseph had taken over the Rose ranch completely, transforming it into a successful horse breeding operation. Their first child, a daughter named after Eliza, was apparently already showing signs of her aunt's determination. We should visit them this summer, Eliza suggested. The children would love to see the horses. Owen nodded, his arms slipping comfortably around her waist. Whatever you want, my love. The years had been kind to them. The small ranch they had purchased had flourished under their care, and Owen's reputation as a fair and knowledgeable cattleman had spread throughout the region. Eliza had eventually sold her share in the dressmaker's shop to focus on raising their children, though she still took on special commissions for those who valued her skilled needlework. They had heard, through various sources, that Clarence Taylor had died the previous winter, bitter and alone to the end. The news had brought Eliza no joy, only a solemn recognition that hatred and vengeance had claimed yet another victim. "Mama, look," Thomas called, pointing excitedly as the foal nuzzled his hand. "She likes me." "Of course she does," Eliza called back. "You have a kind heart, just like your father." Owen chuckled beside her. "And a stubborn streak a mile wide, just like your mother." Eliza elbowed him playfully. "I prefer to call it determination." "Is that what it was when you insisted on helping birth that heifer last month, even though Doc Stevens was right there?" Owen teased. "That was practical experience," Eliza defended herself. "Besides, I did most of the work when Emma was born. A calf isn't so different." Owen's expression softened at the memory of their daughter's birth, how Eliza had labored through the night while a blizzard raged outside, the midwife unable to reach them. Owen had been terrified, but Eliza had remained calm, directing him with remarkable composure until their daughter arrived safely in the early hours of the morning. "You are the strongest person I've ever known," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "Every day I thank God that I stopped by that creek 5 years ago." Eliza turned in his arms, reaching up to touch his face, still handsome, though now bearing the weathered lines of a man who worked outdoors. "And I thank God that you were brave enough to say those words to me." "What words?" Owen asked, though the smile in his eyes suggested he knew exactly what she meant. "Then I'll be the right one," Eliza quoted softly. "You were. You are. The best decision I ever made was trusting you that day." Owen leaned down to kiss her, still with the same tenderness that made her heart flutter after all these years. "And the best decision I ever made was loving you, Eliza Daniels. From that first moment, bruises and all, I knew you were worth fighting for." As their children's laughter echoed across the ranch yard, Eliza thought about the journey that had brought them here, the pain, the fear, the unexpected joy. Her father had beaten her for loving the wrong man, but in doing so, he had inadvertently led her to the right one, a man who had proven, day after day, year after year, that love built on respect and partnership was stronger than any force that might stand against it. "Forever," she whispered against Owen's lips, a promise renewed each day. "Forever," he agreed, holding her close as they watched their children, the living embodiments of their love, play freely in the golden Colorado sunshine, unburdened by the shadows that had once threatened to consume their mother's life. And in that moment, surrounded by the family and life they had built together, Eliza knew with absolute certainty that she had indeed found her true home, not in a place, but in the arms of the man who had become her partner, her protector, her right one.